Jason Carter tugged the brim of his baseball cap a little lower, the rough stubble on his face blending into the shadows of his thick glasses. He didn't look like the successful CEO of a restaurant chain with 12 bustling locations across the state. Today, he was just another man with a quiet purpose. It had been years since Jason walked into one of his restaurants without an entourage, without a camera crew or a planned inspection, but this time was different. This time he came alone, under the radar, chasing the truth he could no longer ignore. Reports had been trickling in for months: customer complaints, unusually high employee turnover, declining profits at specific locations. Every meeting with his regional managers ended in empty reassurances and recycled excuses. But Jason didn't build his empire on words. He built it on sweat, grit, and the belief that every meal served should make someone's day just a little bit better. Somewhere along the way, something had cracked, and now he was here to find out what. He chose this particular restaurant because it wasn't the busiest. But that's what worried him. It had been flagged for inconsistent operations. As he stepped through the door, the familiar scent of sizzling burgers and seasoned fries greeted him, triggering distant memories of late nights spent testing recipes and dreaming big. But nostalgia was quickly replaced by unease. Something was off. The space was clean, but the energy inside felt stale. Staff moved with a sluggish disinterest, their eyes dulled by routine. In the corner, a woman with a name tag that read Sandra leaned against the wall, glued to her phone. Her posture screamed apathy. Jason joined the end of the line, blending in with the few customers ahead. He quietly observed. The cashier, a girl in her early 20s, was clearly overwhelmed. Her hands trembled slightly as she fumbled through orders while her coworkers lingered aimlessly. There was no teamwork, no flow, no life. Before he could move forward to order, the sound of the entrance door squeaking open caught his attention. A man, hunched and weathered by life, stepped in. His clothes were frayed, his face tired, and in his hand was a flimsy plastic bag carrying everything he owned. He moved tentatively, his gaze darting nervously, as if unsure whether to stay or flee. That's when Sandra finally lifted her eyes not to help but to attack. "Hey, you can't be in here," she barked, her voice slicing through the hum of conversation. "We don't allow loitering. Go somewhere else." The man raised his hands slowly, his posture defensive, not defiant. "I just wanted a little water," he murmured. "I'm not trying to cause trouble." "I said no," Sandra snapped, her voice rising with indignation. "Leave now, or I'm calling the police." Jason felt a jolt run through his chest. The man flinched, his eyes dropping as if the very weight of existing had become too heavy. "I'm sorry," he whispered, already turning to go. "Wait," Jason said, his voice calm but firm, slicing through the tension like a blade through silk. All eyes turned toward him. Even Sandra froze. "This has nothing to do with you," she spat, folding her arms across her chest. Jason stepped forward anyway. "Sir, you said you just needed water?" The man nodded, eyes brimming with both gratitude and disbelief. "Yes, and I'll leave right after, I promise." Jason turned to Sandra, his tone steady, though a storm brewed behind his eyes. "It's just water." Why couldn't he have a cup? Sandra rolled her eyes. "We're not a charity. People like him scare away paying customers." Jason's jaw clenched. The calm CEO inside him fought against the man who'd once mopped floors at 2 a.m. in his first restaurant. "I'll pay for whatever he needs. Get him a meal too." Sandra looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Jason's presence silenced her. She turned away, muttering under her breath. Jason walked the man to a table and handed him the water cup. "Take your time eating," he said gently. "You're not bothering anyone." The man's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as he took his seat, slowly unpacking the warmth of the meal in front of him as if it were a gift he didn't deserve. Jason felt his own chest tighten. Returning to the line, Jason noticed the young cashier approach him shyly. "Thank you for doing that," she whispered. Her eyes flicked nervously toward Sandra. "I wanted to help him, but I didn't want to get in trouble." Jason's heart sank. The fear in her voice wasn't just about losing a job. It was the fear of losing her sense of right and wrong in a place that punished kindness. "Mike," he said, offering a gentle smile. "What's your name?" "Emma," she replied softly. Jason ordered his meal and took a seat, this time not to eat but to observe with purpose. Sandra hadn't changed, still barking orders without lifting a hand to help. Meanwhile, Emma moved through the chaos with quiet dignity, her exhaustion masked only by a faint but consistent warmth. Jason knew then, this place didn't need new equipment or marketing. It needed heart, and that started at the top. Jason couldn't shake the tension that had gripped his chest since yesterday. The weight of what he had witnessed pressed heavily on his conscience. He had built this company to be a symbol of respect, decency, and dignity, but what he saw, the dismissive management, the exhausted staff, the cruelty toward a man in need, revealed a rot he could no longer ignore. As he scraped the last of his cold fries from the tray, Jason made up his mind. He had to return, undercover again. If yesterday was a glimpse, today would be a deep dive. The next morning, Jason arrived just before the lunch rush. His disguise was the same, unkempt beard, thick glasses, and a cap pulled low. But this time he brought a small notebook tucked into his jacket. He planned to document everything. The restaurant felt no different. The air still buzzed with passive disinterest. Staff moved like shadows, not people. And once again, Sandra was stationed near the register, coffee in hand and scrolling her phone like a queen on her throne. Jason approached, this time with a new strategy. "Hi, I'm supposed to start today, was told to check in with the manager," he said casually, slipping effortlessly into the role of a new hire. Sandra barely looked up. "We're slammed today," she said flatly, gesturing without interest. "Just shadow Emma. She'll show you the ropes." Jason nodded, masking his irritation. He made his way to Emma, who was already managing 2 customers at once while glancing nervously at the kitchen. Her smile was small but genuine. "Hi, Mike, right? I didn't know you were starting today." "Yeah, last-minute thing," Jason replied, scratching his head. "Guess. I'm your sidekick now." Emma chuckled faintly, then launched into the basics. Order flow, register work, customer service. But as Jason followed her, he began to see the quiet burden she carried. She was everywhere, cleaning up spills, fixing order mistakes, running food to tables, even calming frustrated customers, while others stood idle or simply avoided eye contact. "Does it always get this crazy?" Jason asked during a brief lull. Emma lowered her voice, glancing over her shoulder. "Pretty much. We're always short-staffed. It's exhausting." Jason frowned. "Does Sandra ever jump in?" Emma hesitated, then shook her head. "She says it's not her job to do grunt work. She just manages." Jason clenched his jaw. So this is what leadership had become here? Detachment, entitlement, blame. As the rush picked up, things got worse. Sandra barked orders like a drill sergeant, correcting mistakes with venom rather than guidance. Her voice cut through the restaurant like broken glass. Jason watched her scold Emma relentlessly, never once stepping in to help. Then came the tipping point. A mother, clearly frazzled, approached the counter with 2 small children in tow. Her voice was apologetic as she explained the order was wrong. Emma, still breathless from the rush, immediately stepped in. "I'm so sorry, let me fix that right away." Sandra cut in before she could act. "Maybe if you ordered it right the first time, we wouldn't be having this problem," she snapped. The mother stiffened, her eyes narrowing. "Excuse me, that's not how you speak to a customer." Sandra shrugged, voice laced with disdain. "We're busy. Mistakes happen. No need to make a scene." That was it. Jason stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides. "I'll take care of this," he said. His eyes locked on Sandra, voice sharp but composed. Then, turning to the woman, he added, "I'm very sorry. We'll remake your order right away, and it's on the house." The woman blinked in surprise, then nodded with a quiet thank you. Emma, grateful, rushed to fix the order while Jason took Sandra aside. "Do you think that was the right way to handle that?" he asked, his voice even, but with a firmness that made it clear he was done watching in silence. Sandra folded her arms. "If you want to last here, you'll learn that people like her just want to complain. We don't have time to babysit every whiner." Jason bit back the fury rising in his chest. Not yet. He needed to see more, needed his plan to be watertight. By closing time, Jason had seen enough. The picture was clear. Sandra's leadership was a mask worn without responsibility, while Emma, overwhelmed and underappreciated, was the glue holding everything together. As the store emptied out, Jason stayed behind to help Emma wipe down tables and restock supplies. "You're really good at this," he said sincerely, watching her gently fold napkins into holders. Emma smiled, tired but thankful. "Thanks. I just try to keep things running. Someone has to." Jason paused. "Why do you stay? With everything going on, I'd understand if you looked for something else." Emma shrugged. "My mom's sick. I'm helping pay her medical bills. And I actually like people, even if it's hard sometimes." Jason's throat tightened. Her answer wasn't just about duty, it was about heart. "You deserve better," he said softly. Later that night, Jason sat in his car parked a block from the restaurant, the notebook on his lap filled with scribbled observations, frustrations, and questions. Anger and guilt battled in his chest. How had he allowed this to happen? How had he become so distant from the values that built his success? Tomorrow would be the turning point. As he stared into the rearview mirror, Jason reached up and adjusted his disguise one last time. The time for watching was over. Tomorrow, they'd see the real him. And real change would begin. Jason sat in his car that morning, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. He tugged at the edges of the fake beard, ran a hand along the brim of his cap, and let out a deep breath. The night had offered little sleep, only a restless cycle of thoughts and scenes replaying in his mind. Sandra's behavior wasn't just poor leadership. It was toxic, corrosive, and completely at odds with the values his business was built on. But beyond her, there was a deeper truth staring him in the face. The culture he'd created had drifted off course, and it was his responsibility to steer it back. When he walked into the restaurant that morning, the place buzzed with the beginnings of the breakfast crowd. Emma was already behind the counter, greeting customers with a tired smile that somehow still felt genuine. She looked surprised to see him, but her face lit up. "Morning, Mike," she called, handing him an apron. "Looks like you're back for more." Jason smiled, chuckling lightly. "Guess I couldn't stay away." But it didn't take long for him to notice something had shifted in Emma's demeanor. Her movements were brisker, her responses quicker, like someone expecting the other shoe to drop. She was preparing herself for impact. And she didn't have to wait long. Sandra stormed in 15 minutes late, holding a coffee in one hand and frustration in the other. She didn't greet anyone, didn't apologize. Her presence was a storm cloud rolling in. "Why is that table still dirty? Who's restocking the sauces?" she barked, throwing her bag onto the counter like a gauntlet. Emma froze mid-order, her face flushing as a customer glanced over in awkward silence. "I'll get to it soon. I've been managing the counter alone," she replied, trying to remain calm. Sandra scoffed. "Excuses don't run a restaurant. Just do your job." Jason clenched his jaw so tightly it ached. Every word Sandra spat chipped away at the morale of those around her, and she didn't even seem to care. She hovered near the front, sipping her coffee, criticizing minor imperfections, but never once lifted a hand to help. Then a moment unfolded that pierced Jason's heart. An elderly man in a wheelchair rolled slowly to the counter, struggling to unzip his bag to retrieve a wallet. Without hesitation, Emma stepped out from behind the register, crouching to assist him with gentle care. "Take your time," she said softly, her voice a comfort amid the chaos. But Sandra rolled her eyes. "Emma, we don't have time for this. There's a line." That was it. Jason stepped forward, his voice calm but unshakable. "She's doing the right thing. If the line's such a problem, you can handle it." Sandra turned sharply. "Excuse me? Who do you think you are telling me how to run my restaurant?" Jason met her gaze without flinching. "I think you've shown exactly how you run it, and it's not working." Before Sandra could bite back, Emma returned to finish the transaction. Her face was pale, but she moved with dignity. Jason gave her a small nod of reassurance before stepping back. He didn't need to play the part anymore. It was almost time. The next hour was unbearable. Sandra lashed out at a young kitchen worker over a simple scheduling question. She openly criticized Emma in front of guests and ignored every basic principle of leadership. Morale was crumbling with every passing minute. Jason knew it was time. He slipped quietly into the back office. Removing his cap, he peeled off the beard and ran his fingers through his hair, straightening his posture, shedding the disguise piece by piece. When he returned to the dining area, he wasn't Mike the new guy anymore. He was Jason Carter, CEO. For a brief moment, no one noticed. Then Emma turned, her eyes locking onto his face, and her lips parted in a whisper. "Jason?" He gave her a small nod. "Emma, can you gather the staff? I need to speak with everyone." Confused but cooperative, Emma called everyone together. The kitchen crew filed out, murmuring. Even Sandra, arms folded and brows raised in suspicion, lingered near the back. Jason stood before them all and took a deep breath. "I'm Jason Carter," he began, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I'm the owner of this restaurant and of every location in this chain." The room froze. Sandra's face drained of color, while Emma's eyes welled with tears. "For the past 2 days, I've worked undercover to see what was really happening here, and let me tell you, I've seen the best of people and the worst of practices." He turned to Emma, his expression softening. "Emma, you've reminded me why I started this business. Your kindness, your dedication, your strength, especially without the support you deserve, have humbled me. I can't thank you enough." Emma's lip trembled, but her eyes held back the tears as she managed a fragile smile. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice laced with disbelief and gratitude. Jason gave a nod, his gaze then shifting, firming as it met Sandra's. The softness in his expression vanished. "Now," he began, his tone unwavering, "Sandra, your behavior has been inexcusable. You've disrespected your team, berated customers, refused to lead by example, and cultivated an environment that's toxic and demoralizing." Sandra's jaw dropped. She opened her mouth to argue, but Jason raised his hand, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "This is not a negotiation. You're terminated, effective immediately." A collective gasp rippled through the staff. Sandra's face twisted with rage. "You can't just—" "I can," Jason interrupted. "And I will. You were given every opportunity to do better. You chose not to." Sandra stood frozen for a moment, her face flushed with fury before storming out of the restaurant. The door slammed behind her, echoing through the space like a gavel on judgment. Jason exhaled slowly, centering himself. Then he turned back to the remaining employees, their faces stunned but attentive. "Starting today, things are going to change," he said, his voice warming. "We're bringing in a new manager, someone who values teamwork, fairness, and mutual respect. And Emma?" He turned to her, eyes full of admiration. "I'd like to promote you to assistant manager. You've more than earned it." Emma's mouth fell open, her hands flying to her chest. "Me? Are you serious?" Jason smiled. "I've never been more serious." Applause erupted from the team. Some clapped eagerly, others with wide-eyed relief. Emma wiped a tear from her cheek, overwhelmed but glowing. For the first time in a long time, hope flickered through the restaurant like sunlight through a cracked window. Jason didn't stop there. He stayed the entire day, speaking with every employee one-on-one, listening to not just to their complaints, but to their ideas, their dreams, their frustrations. And by the time he left, something had shifted. The building hadn't changed, but the soul of the place, the energy, felt new. It felt alive. Over the next 2 weeks, Jason returned again and again, not as a shadow but as a leader reborn. He followed through on every promise. Some changes were hard, especially for staff who had grown used to Sandra's unchecked power. But Jason didn't waver. The culture would change no matter how uncomfortable it made people at first. The most critical decision was appointing the new manager. Her name was Maria Francefer, a seasoned, steady presence Jason knew personally from another location. She had a gift for cultivating respect, for creating harmony in chaos. On her first day, Maria gathered the team. "I'm not here to boss anyone around," she said, standing confidently at the center of the dining area. "I'm here to work beside you, to build something we're all proud of. But I can't do it alone. It's going to take all of us." Emma stood beside her, now wearing a sleek new name tag that read Assistant Manager. She still looked unsure at times, but Jason had seen the shift. Her confidence was blooming. She was speaking up more, delegating, guiding. One afternoon, Jason dropped in unannounced. The lunch crowd was in full swing, but this time the atmosphere buzzed with energy, not tension. The staff moved like a team, communication fluid and natural. Maria was behind the counter, hands-on during the rush. Emma darted between the register and the kitchen, her steps quick but light. She smiled often now. She looked like she belonged. "Hi, Jason," she said, spotting him at the counter. "What brings you by?" "Just checking in," he replied, scanning the room. "Place looks incredible." Emma grinned. "It's been a lot of work, but Maria's amazing, and everyone's really stepping up. It feels like we're finally a real team." "You're doing an amazing job," Jason said, his tone sincere. Emma blushed slightly. "Thank you. That means so much." Jason took a seat near the corner booth, soaking it all in. As he sipped his coffee, he noticed a young man in a worn-out hoodie step timidly through the entrance. The boy's shoulders were hunched, eyes scanning the space nervously, like he expected to be thrown out before he could speak. Jason's chest tightened. He remembered the first man, the cruelty that followed him to the door. But this time was different. Emma saw him. She walked over, her smile warm and unwavering. "Hi there. Can I help you with something?" The young man hesitated. I don't have much. I just wanted a glass of water." "I can stay out of the way, I promise." Emma's tone didn't shift. "Of course. Sit wherever you're comfortable. And don't worry about it. I'll bring you a meal." The boy blinked in disbelief. "Really? You don't have to—" "I want to," Emma said. "It's no problem at all." Jason leaned back, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. This was what he had always dreamed of. A place not just for profit, but for people. A place where dignity lived, even for those with nothing to give in return. Later that day, as the restaurant slowed, Jason called Emma into the office. Maria joined as well. "I saw what you did," Jason began, "with the young man earlier. That moment reminded me why I started this business. You showed him respect, compassion, and that's the kind of leadership we need." Emma shifted, her cheeks pink. "I just wanted to do the right thing." "And you did," Jason said, reaching into his briefcase. He handed her an envelope. "This is for you." Emma's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a check for $5,000, 0 cents. Her jaw dropped. "I don't know what to say. This is too much." "It's exactly what you deserve," Jason replied. "And starting next month, I want you in our leadership training program. I believe in your future here. You've already proven your worth." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. Maria placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You've earned it, Emma. You're going to do amazing things." That evening, as Jason stepped outside and looked back at the restaurant, he felt something rare and precious: fulfillment. Not just in profit, but in purpose. The place behind him was no longer just a business. It was a reflection of resilience, of redemption, of people who cared. For Emma, for the team, and for Jason himself, the future was bright. And this time, he wouldn't take his eyes off it. Because sometimes the most powerful transformation comes not from profit margins or policies, but from a single act of kindness and the courage to make it count.